Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and today I wanted to do a very short tutorial type video talking about how I've made some smoke markers for my World War II games. So over the years I've done various blog posts to do with making things like smoke markers for burning vehicles and destroyed buildings and things like that. So I've used different materials. I tend to go for hard material, so clump foliage stuck together, that sort of thing. But the one sort of marker on the table I've never really been satisfied with is smoke markers for smoke laid down as cover by mortars or tanks, for instance. And so I've used different materials like cotton wool buds and stuffing material for making stuffed toy animals and things like that. And again, I've never been really happy with the way they've looked, partly because they make a hell of a mess. I end up getting, white fluffy material over everything else. Plus, you make them for that game and they just seem to fall apart. So I was giving this some thought because I need some smoke markers for my Chain of Command games, and I decided what I really needed was a semi-solid structure underneath that packing material, so that they would be a bit more robust, last a few more games, would keep their shape. And what I ended up making was something like this. Now, I made this based on the fact that I went shopping with my wife at the weekend and I bought 4 baby bath sponges nonetheless, and I got a very peculiar look off my wife. Not unusual, but she's pretty quickly coming round to the idea that when I go shopping I'm always on the lookout for odd materials that I can use for modelling projects, and this was one of them. So I'm going to put some pictures over here because I didn't actually film this because I was in a bit of a hurry to make these. So I'm going to put some photographs here to show you what I did. So what I did first off the sponges that I bought were too large. They were about 5.5 inches diameter, and really what I wanted was a 3-inch diameter marker at the end, which meant that this foam core of that marker needed to be a little bit smaller still, so about 2.5 inches, because I was then going to cover the surface in this soft fluffy packing material sort of thing that you'd put inside a teddy bear or something like that, if you was making a stuffed animal or other package, or inside a pillow, perhaps a more usual thing to use it for. So I needed the core, in this case sponge, to be slightly smaller than 3 inches. Now obviously I could have done some complicated mathematics to figure out what the circumference of a 2.5 inch sphere would be, so that I could cut just the right shape out of that larger circular sponge. I didn't bother with the maths, I just took a knife to it, cut it, squeezed it together. No, that's too big, cut a bit more off, and eventually I worked out I needed to remove about 1/3 of the total sponge, so that when I squeezed it together and glued it together, I would end up with a sphere, or roughly a sphere, that was about 2.5 inches across. So having cut it, I then just put some super glue around the inside of the 2 cuts, squeezed them together, and when they set in a matter of seconds, what I was left with was a small sphere, a semi-sphere, a little bit larger than 2.5 inches. Now I had a little practice and I put some of the packing material over the top, but you could see the sphere inside and it was just too uniform looking. So I decided what I needed to do was I needed to rough the surface up of that foam sphere. And actually the best method, I tried a couple of different methods, clipping it, I used hot wire, and it was all too much mucking around, and in the end what I did was I did the simplest thing possible. I just took my fingers and pinched little pieces off the surface of the foam all the way around, and what I was left with was a roughly 2.5 inch sphere of foam, but with loads of dimples all over it, so it looks sort of like a golf ball. But it meant that the surface wasn't even, which had another advantage that I didn't really think of. It increased the surface area on which the packing material with a soft outer coating could adhere to, and then it was just a matter of putting super glue all over the foam and then spreading the packing material over the outside, so that the outside bit is really a minimal amount of this white packing material, and most of it is fairly well adhered to the foam underneath. And that's it. Let it set. I gave it a little bit of a spray with some accelerant so that the super glue would set rather quickly, and within 10 minutes of making them, they were on the games table being used. And the thing is, they're a little bit solid because obviously the super glue underneath has gone a little bit hard, but they feel robust. You can pick them up and move them around, and they're not falling apart. I ended up making 4, which is more than enough really, I think, for my games, but they were so easy. Definitely next time I pass by the same shop, I'm buying some more of those baby bath sponges, and I'll make some more of these because they were just so easy to do. It took me about 10 minutes at the most. A bit messy because I had little bits of foam that I'd plucked off and some of the packing material, but other than that, a really simple build for what I think are some quite nice looking smoke markers. 3 inches across now that I've added the packing material on the outside, and just what I needed for my chain of command games. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that a little bit interesting. And as I say, my approach to shopping, I go out shopping with my wife. She knows to expect that I'm always on the lookout for random materials that I might be able to use for building with, and so that I turn even the most mundane of shopping trips into an expedition for material, for resources for my hobby. So I can turn any shopping trip into a hobby trip, and that keeps me happy. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that interesting. Really simple. It's definitely worth having a go yourself. I mean, that I made 4 smoke markers for less than £1. They were 49p for 2, and the foam, the packing material was, I think I got that for next to nothing as well years ago, and I got bags and bags of the stuff under the cupboard and in various jars and boxes around here. So really, £2 at the absolute most. Sorry, £1 even at the absolute most for 4 markers. So bargain, frankly. Darn sight cheaper than any commercial alternatives that you could buy online. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you found it interesting. As always, if you did, please like, subscribe and share. So until next week, look after yourself, get in as many games as you can, and keep rolling high.